Yo, what is up guys, it's your boy Shieldcoomer aka Sirigath, and in this video we will cover Underrot 24 on a Fortified Storming Bursting week. So pretty simple affixes, honestly, nothing too fancy. Starting off with this first pull, which is rather challenging actually. It is quite spooky. As you can see here, I got both freedom and a sack. It's few things that are important here is you will get netted. Certain people will get rooted, right, by the net. There's these barbed spears, which are best interrupted because they hurt quite a bit. There's this hooked snare, which will root you, and then while you're rooted, it is very important that you don't get hit by like frontals and stuff. And also the matron will deal like a certain portion of damage. You just have to be aware of, you know, who's getting rooted and freedom. There's not much you can do about it, except I think you might be able to grip. I've honestly never tried, because most classes have a way of like removing the slow by themselves, like removing the root by themselves. So I usually just let them do their own thing, so I don't accidentally, you know, pull somebody in some other frontals or something like that. And then this pack is this Savage Cleave. It's just a frontal cone that you can dodge. Usually he will charge to someone and then do the Savage Cleave onto you, so you just have to kind of like either walk, like you will see here. And this is where it gets tricky, right? Because I got rooted as that was happening, so it just gets a little bit tricky to dodge all the things that you need to dodge. But it worked out in the end. I mean, it's not, as I said, it's not too spooky. In general, this dungeon is, like, as long as you're aware of what mechanics are happening and stuff. I guess this goes for every single dungeon, but as long as you're aware of what's happening around you, you will be able to make it through. There's, of course, like these, you know, moments where, as I said, barbed spears are pretty dangerous. So as I said, there are these moments where, you know, sometimes you might get a little bit unlucky and get certain overlaps that normally maybe you would. But these things happen, they're pretty normal, so you just have to be kind of like aware of them and try your best to stop them. You know, on high fortified keys, it's always tricky. Eventually, like, your group will run out of stops, or somebody will miss their, you know, kick, or there won't be like a stun available in the group or something like that. So, you know, it's just about basically playing it safe, and not really playing it safe. It's more about just staying, you know, focused and understanding the things that need to be interrupted and understanding when certain things need to be interrupted. So these are two important factors that I like to think about and talk about. It's not always about what needs to be interrupted, it's also when. So there are certain overlaps that are just difficult, where you need to kind of address them and stuff. Great example of that is that root into the frontal, or you know, barbed spear overlap with something else, just stuff like that. Honestly, I could have done a little bit better job there. Now looking back at this video, like, I actually think all of that's were preventable so far, probably. Just by me. I'm not even talking, like, of course they were preventable in a lot of ways, but I'm just saying, like, I could have prevented both of them, like, if I just reacted a little bit better. But yeah, it is what it is, you know. I mean, you live and you learn. This is actually one of the main and one of my favorite reasons why I like making these videos, is because not only, you know, am I hoping that these videos will help somebody else, but I'll be honest, they also help me, like, analyze my gameplay and see, and just like see what I can do better, see what can be done better, see if there's any, you know, perhaps adjustments that I need to make, looking at perhaps if I'm not pressing certain buttons enough, or if I'm pressing certain buttons maybe a little bit too much. You know, sometimes I feel like I'm too damage focused in certain keys, and then in some other keys I also feel like I could be playing like a lot less safe and more aggressive. Just stuff like that, you know, just kind of like paying attention to your gameplay and understanding the things you can improve on. It's always a good mindset to have, regardless of which game you're playing. This isn't just WoW specific. If you ever wanna get better at the game, one of the best things you can do is record it and then watch it back. You'd be surprised that even if you're like the most aware player that exists, you'd be surprised with how many things you just miss because, you know, you're like, you know, some people are just better at multitasking, some people are worse, but the bottom line is we can't notice everything. Like that's literally why practice is important, and why getting better at keys, in my opinion at least, comes down to a lot of things, don't get me wrong, but one of the main things is just like, instead, like, learning how to filter information in general in World of Warcraft is so important, because if you think about it, like, look at the screen now. Like, if you just focus on what's ahead of you, just purely visually, don't like think about it. There's like so much going on. There's like slime on the left. There's like some slime on the floor. There's like 6 tornadoes. Every mob is casting something. I have like 20 buffs and procs going on. It is like so overwhelming. That's why, like, getting better at this game, a lot about it is just about filtering the correct information that you need to succeed. A lot of times you're like soaking up information that isn't really impactful. You're thinking about something that probably won't determine like whether your pull will be successful or not, and stuff like that. And it's just easier to notice these things when you look back at it with a, you know, calm head, while you're not actually playing and focusing on, you know, maximizing your output, you know, whether it's healing or damage or tanking, you know, struggling to survive, or just trying to interrupt and stuff like that. You just notice so much more when you're in this like calm mindset, where you just look back at the keys you've done and you're like, oh man, I could have really, you know, like right now in that pack that I watched earlier, like I could have spread my dots much earlier, for example, which would have given me like way more damage and healing, because that's how it works with this. And just stuff like that, you know. Sometimes like, look here I spread dots really nicely. 4 targets all dotted very early on, you know, like 10 seconds into the pool at the latest. In that previous pool there was like half of the mobs that didn't have dots on them, and that's just like such a big output loss for us at the moment. But I was dispelling and stuff, so, you know, I was a little bit global hungry, so I was just trying to cast my priority spells. So it's an easy mistake to make, is my point. Like, this isn't necessarily, you know, me not playing that pack properly. It's just that there's definitely like some things you can do to optimize this, you know. Maybe spread dots a little bit earlier, maybe put a little bit higher priority on them if you know you're gonna have to be dispelling and stuff like that. Just like these little things, they definitely add up, guys. They definitely add up. You know, it all adds up. It's 5 players. If one does a little thing better here, this one does a little bit thing better there, you know, everybody does just a tiny bit more, and we all get better success. That's how it works, in my opinion. Anyway, I went into philosophy of the game too much now. I wanted to talk about this key. So basically, decaying mind is very important to be interrupted here. You can, of course, just, you know, either dispel it, or I think you can also heal it if you don't have the disease dispel. If you're playing a healer without disease dispel, I believe you can also just heal it, right? And then it gets removed. So basically it's a long stun that if you don't remove, like, it stays on and stuff. It's just like inconvenient if it gets through. People will lose a lot of damage if that happens, so I'd highly recommend like focusing interrupts on that. And then focusing stuns and fears on these swarmers. So these swarmers are a big problem. And I just don't think I've seen that at all. By the way, like, I wasn't greeting for casts or anything. I just don't think I've seen it at all. That's one thing, you know. That's pretty bad. Should always be aware.
Sonic Screech.
And yeah, just kiting these blood swarmers. You know, they will deal quite a bit of damage to your to their fixate target. They of course fixate, so, you know, don't be angry at your tank if they're running at you. It's not a tank issue. They're just designed to do that. You see there, like, I barely managed to save Rogue with the power word life and the shield and stuff. So it's just like these little things, as I said, you know. Making sure you have roots, stuns, fears, some movement speed, some defensive while you're fixated. All of these things help. You can just kite them, like, their range is pretty small. However, if you run too far away from them, then they will jump at you. So the best way to kite them is actually to kind of be at the mid distance, because once again, if you go too far away, they will jump and then they'll just keep attacking you. And if you're too close, they will obviously keep attacking you and kill you. So you do need to kind of like keep your distance. Ideally, you know, melee players can usually kind of kite nicely and stuff. Can remain out of the range of their attacks pretty easily, I would say, while also doing damage to something else. Although that's not always the case. It all depends like on positioning of the green doo-doo on the floor and all the things, you know. But yeah, this pack is pretty simple. Two things are very, very important here though. So first of all, I mean, okay, we pulled like this with the worm, so of course interrupts and stuff, but I'm not gonna talk about that because we don't have any for this guy, at least, because fear doesn't work. So we literally can't help there. But yeah, these guys will get shields, so that shield needs to be dispelled. It's a bit it's a bit of a big absorb. It's really worth it if you spare your GCDs. Don't make your DPS do it. Like, just let them do damage. There's not much going on there. Empower. So your priority should be purging shields, but number one priority is dispelling the dot. So whoever gets the dot, dispel it quickly, because as you've seen on the high keys, Fortified, like the dot actually kills you in like 2 ticks, so you gotta be quick, okay? As soon as you've dispelled, then you can go back to purging shields, and if you purged all the shields, then I would suggest just doing some damage, you know, and maybe helping your tank a little bit. Although I do think tanks shouldn't need that much help in that particular pack, but the way I see it is it's always good to at least have an atonement on tank and let your like passive damage that you're dealing just by applying dots and stuff just to run onto the tank, and at the very least, so they don't have to like self-sustain as much, and maybe they can commit a little bit more, you know, buttons to just doing damage and things like that. So I would still do it. I mean, you know, tanking is in such a like a weird position. I don't think I've seen tanks get one shot much in season 1. But I feel like in this season, there's just a lot of packs where I feel like you just lose tanks within a second. And I don't know why exactly that's happening. Like, I mean, obviously I know some mobs are just like tank chunkers, but apparently there's just a lot of them. And like, frankly, I feel like tanks using like their defensives properly and stuff has never been as important as it is now. And I mean, I played with some good tanks and some bad tanks and some mediocre tanks, and as you guys know, I also pug a lot of keys. I haven't really done too much this season. All these people in this group are my guildies, by the way. We recently assembled this group to kind of play together, and it's just been like so interesting to see how like sometimes tanks just get like chucked, you know, in like 1 GCD, and it's really scary, you know. I don't know if it's like but I've seen this like before as well. It's not really like an unexpected thing. It's just that well, it is unexpected. What I meant is not a new thing, you know. It's like been happening from the start of the season. It really feels like Blizzard has done something weird with the tuning. I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it. But things either feel like they don't do anything or they do too much. It's just nothing like really feels properly balanced. I gotta say, I'm a little bit disappointed with this season so far. I'm sorry for the negativity. It's just that, like, hear me out. Like, third boss in Halls of Infusion, last boss in Vortex Pinnacle, totem on the last boss in Brackenhide. It's just like these little things that just sometimes feel like they're tiny bit too much and out of reach, and it really feels like I don't think anything should ever be designed in a way where you have to do it perfectly in order for it to work. Anyway, I wish I talked a little bit more about the boss. I kind of got caught up rambling. I'm sorry for that. So basically, about the worm boss, because here is the same pack as we already talked about, so there's nothing new to say. Just purge and dispel people that get dots. I don't want to say though, on the worm boss, please make sure that you're actually topping people up as the tantrum is going. It will hit twice very hard, and it will kill people or bring them very low, depending on how tanky they are, if you don't do anything. So I would pull, because that boss literally has no healing requirement. You literally just do damage. But make sure that you're stepping on worms, help out as much as you can. Priest isn't actually too bad at it. Like, we are not the quickest class, but we have sustained mobility because we have 3 feathers. So pull your feathers for that. Spread out before he does tantrum. Be ready to heal. Obviously, you can also use your rupture preemptively if you like to. You don't necessarily have to, of course, but I think it's a good way to kind of like make sure everybody stays alive and healthy. And just yeah, pull your feathers and make sure you're baiting obviously wherever you agree with your team. Like we usually bait to the rib cage or to the wall. But maybe your team has a different idea. Maybe it doesn't really matter as long as you guys are making it easier for yourself to kill the worms. That's all you need to do.
Withering Curse, Shadowfold Folly.
And once again, this pack really has nothing to do with us. We're just gonna show up and look pretty. Or if you don't look pretty, I guess just show up and click a few buttons. I mean, really, this is just a damage pull for us because we can't interrupt. So we just, you know, do this. And honestly, on this key level, if any kick goes through, we just die. So it doesn't really, there's not much to kill either. Like it's just easiest job in the world. Like one cool thing about higher keys is that certain kicks you just don't care about because it's like either DPS interrupts it or we die. Like there's not a way to live some of the things that happen. So it's like not my fucking job award, you know, TM. Pretty funny to me. But yeah, obviously I'm joking. Like you shouldn't think like that. You should always be aware of what's happening and stuff and do your best to prevent, you know, disasters from happening. Sometimes if you can predict, like if you're smart and aware and you see that, you know, nobody has kick and you see something is gonna go off, of course you can commit like a barrier, radiance, and people will usually survive. Like if you have both barrier and radiance running, there's actually not a lot of abilities that will kill you through both with a defensive up. So, you know, these things, you know, you can always, there's always something you can do, you know. When I say there's nothing you can do, I don't literally mean it. Like you can use pain up on someone, you can, you know, you can keep somebody alive, you know. It's not like, maybe not everybody, if it's like an AoE, but definitely can keep people alive. And yeah, this boss, again, pretty simple. Honestly, since it's Fortified, talking about these bosses in this dungeon is kind of weird because they're all easy. I'm just gonna be honest. All of these bosses are pretty easy. This is again a DPS boss because the DPS just needs to destroy as many mushrooms as they can. I will say one thing though, pay attention to tank. If tank is clearing extra mushrooms or if a DPSers are picking up mushrooms, make sure you're dispelling them ASAP. When the pods happen, make sure you have some radiance pulled and then just pop it as soon as the explosion happens to top people up. In case they get hit by the bubble, they shouldn't die. So there's no need to let anybody die here. Just be mindful, don't be lazy. Pull a few radiances for the explosion and you're good to go.
Volatile pods. Shockwave. Festering Harvest. Volatile Pods. Boundless Rot.
And here we were like thinking about committing to the boss and stuff, and you know he was close to exploding, but yeah, the boss was pretty dead. It's honestly a pretty clean fight and stuff. Like some things could have been done better as always, but just a very simple fight. There's never a reason to like anything to go wrong on that boss in my opinion. It's a pretty simple one. So yeah. So here what we like to do is we like to focus on the horror. We like to kill horror first so we can take this guy into the next pool, and then next pool is a little bit dangerous. So you will see me kind of like softly kind of pull my resources and my, I mean, what resources, right? Like it's not like we can pull anything, but I'm just saving like kind of like my radiances and my Rhapsody charge and my pot probably for the next pull. Next pull is a bit dangerous, but yeah, here we're just all about killing the grotesque horror and just making sure he dies as soon as possible, so we can immediately start chain pulling into the next.
Withering Curse. Summon Spirit Drain Totem.
Empowered.
And here you do have to be careful here. Here. Basically, what I kind of like to do here is it's almost, guys, like the same priority as what I've already talked about. I'm being a little bit lazy here though. I was a little bit lazy here. I finally start purging. I don't know why I waited this long. This pack should have already been like at 70% HP if I just purged a little bit more diligently. This is what I mean. Like just don't be lazy. Do yourself a favor. Do your group a favor. Don't be lazy. Like, I know it sucks, and sometimes you think, oh man, why am I the only one that has to purge and dispel and do everything? Well, the fact is, like, your GCDs cost the least, so it's way better for you to purge than, let's say, like a rogue or, you know, whoever else can purge. It doesn't matter. Maybe you're playing with a different comp. It doesn't matter who it is. It's always the healer that loses the least by purging. And the only exception to this is during like, obviously there's a priority system. If somebody is dying, you should heal them rather than purge. Like, that hopefully goes without saying. Unless the purge would result in like a catastrophic wipe or something. But it's just like, be diligent, don't be lazy, focus on the mechanics ahead of you, and you will be fine most of the time. So this pack and the upcoming pack are a little bit tricky. So here, what you really need to do is two things. When he casts Maddening Gaze, no, this has nothing to do with the Pride Month, by the way. Don't get too excited. It's a frontal, so just watch where he's facing. See here, I see he's facing me, so I move. It's a frontal, it's very quick, you cannot dodge it, so you just need to see where it's being cast, and you need to move. And when he casts Abyssal Reach, these tentacles will spawn, and he spawns each tentacle at the player's location and then slams onto this player's location where he spawned the tentacle for. So all you have to do is just, whenever you see this ability coming up, you just move like few steps left, right, or, you know, backwards, forwards, wherever. Just move so you don't get slammed. And while moving, obviously be careful and watch for the Maddening Gaze so it doesn't slam you. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really great at it. I'm still kind of like getting the hang of it. It's, to me, I find it very difficult in this pool in particular to see where they're facing. So as you can see, as you can see here, I'm just trying to kind of like get a good camera angle, but it's kind of difficult. I think I'm doing a decent job so far. It's not like the worst. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, ultimately, this is really simple. I mean, this whole key is, as I said, like, I think people are in agreement that this is probably the easiest key this season. And see, there I got slapped because I just didn't see where he's facing. Yeah, it's a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, I think this key is probably one of the easiest this season, honestly. Guys, it's just about like staying focused and paying attention to these little things and just making sure you're not making these mistakes and not being lazy, taking your time to do things that need to be done, and just respecting the dungeon, you know, because I think I felt this in Shadow Moon Burial Grounds last season too. It's like people get Shadow Moon and they're like, oh, this key is easy, but it's actually not on high keys because things actually start to hurt and be dangerous. So it's like, you still have to respect it, you know, especially if you're pushing. Like, sure, if you're doing it just a weekly or something, like, it won't matter probably for the most part, but if you actually are pushing a high key, and yeah, I know like 24 probably at the moment isn't that high, you know, it's like high but not like super high. There's people that have done, I think, like 27s at the moment, maybe even 28s, but that's very limited amount of people, you know. Still 24 is a pretty high key, so you gotta show it respect, you know. It's all about that. It's just like, as I said, respecting the key, very important. And this boss here, okay, like, I think this boss is pretty simple and it's really good for disc. We're pretty well equipped to deal with this. I would like to remind you one thing. So all of this is dispellable. So if you ever get caught with a dot and perhaps maybe the person with the spell dies, or you just feel this spell isn't coming fast enough and you're kind of like running out of juice to heal everybody and stuff, don't be afraid to use a master spell. I wouldn't like recommend just like willy-nilly slamming it all the time because it is kind of like mana expensive, sorry, and you do want to be very careful with your mana as this priest. Even if you have, like, I have Rashok's Trinket and still you can see, like, I'm even playing like Solace and still mana is sometimes an issue if I'm using too many dispels and such. So do be mindful, do be careful. But that being said, it should be pretty chill. It should be pretty chill. Don't forget, Rhapsody here is very powerful as well, because people will be stacked if you're playing this fight properly. And one thing as well I would like to tell you is that Halo is pretty good on this fight. It will clear out all these spores running towards you, so it's pretty valuable to cast it whenever you can. As long as there's a lot of spores up, you don't have to like cast it whenever, but you should utilize it to clear the spores. And of course do healing if you know you're feeling you're sweating for heals. I honestly don't struggle usually to heal this fight.
Vile expulsion.
But yeah, it is, as you can see, it does get slightly dicey sometimes. And one more thing that can happen is, you see when we're baiting the Vile Expulsion, yeah? You always kind of bait it behind, and the reason is because obviously you don't want this goo to be where you're going, right? We want it to be behind us, but you also have to move. Like, look here, that was very unfortunate, like really bad placement on my part, and it went a little bit further than it usually does, so it kind of caught me. That's what you want to avoid. You don't want that to happen. And this again isn't really a great bait because it can go wherever, but it didn't, luckily. So that's how you die. Imagine if this was Tyrannical 24, we're dead there. Like, I die 100%. So just something to be mindful of. It is pretty spooky. You have to be positioned properly, but once you get the positioning down, and once you get the just like the healing pattern of this fight, it's very rotty. Like, it's not bursty, but it is very fair, you know. There's like downtime, it's not like, I don't know, Halls of Infusion third boss. It's not like some of these other fights which just feel like really annoying. It's a very fair fight where you just have to distribute your resources. Don't waste your radiances too much. Like, save them for when you actually need to top people up, or when there's 2 stacks and you have to move or something like that. And yeah, here we made this into a little bit of a disaster, but I think we recovered pretty well. And that's it. That's Underrot 24. Yeah, I just want to say, guys, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you maybe learned something new, or at least found it fun to watch. These are my hopes for these videos. Let me know what you think in the comments. Feel free to, you know, like the video or dislike it if you don't like it. Subscribe to the channel if you're feeling like you're enjoying the content and you want more. There'll be some more guides and analysis coming up as well, and some new stuff I have planned. And yeah, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for supporting the channel, and much love to you all, and good luck in your keys. Bye bye.